Liara stood inside the great hall of her people, the stone walls glowing with faint blue light. Her armor was polished, her eyes sharp, but her heart felt heavy. Before her stood the council, the elders of her warrior race. Their voices carried the weight of command, and today their command was strange. Liara, you are one of our finest warriors, the eldest said. You have proven strength in battle, loyalty to your clan, and wisdom beyond your years. But now your destiny is not war, it is alliance. Liara frowned. Her fingers tightened on the hilt of her blade. She had faced monsters that tore through steel, storms that crushed cities, but nothing felt as bitter as the words that followed. You will take a human as your mate. The hall fell silent. Her breath caught in her throat. Her people despised humans. They were seen as weak, soft, unworthy. For Liara, the thought of being tied to one was not just insulting, it was punishment. Why? She asked, her voice cold. Why a human? The elder's eyes shone with a strange calm. Because peace must be built, not only with weapons, but with blood ties. You will unite with him. And through you, our people will see humans not as prey, but as partners. Liara felt fire rise in her chest. You asked me to bind myself to weakness, she whispered, to a creature who cannot stand against us. Another elder leaned forward. Do not mistake softness for weakness. Sometimes, the smallest flame burns brighter than a raging storm. You will learn this, Liara. She wanted to protest, to shout, to refuse, but a warrior did not disobey the council. Her life was bound to duty. Her honor was chained to obedience. So she bowed her head, though her pride screamed in silence. The human was brought before her that same evening. He was tall for his kind, his hair dark, his eyes steady. He did not kneel as others had. He looked at her directly, and that simple act surprised her. This is Ethan, the elder announced. From this day, he is your mate. Liara studied him, expecting fear. Instead, she found defiance. His jaw was set, his gaze unbroken. He did not cower. You do not want this, do you? She asked him quietly. No, Ethan replied, his voice calm, but I will not break. The words stirred something inside her. A small shift, almost too faint to notice. She pushed it away quickly, telling herself it was only curiosity. That night, she walked alone across the high cliffs. The stars burned bright above the alien skies. She thought of the command, of the shame she felt. She was the strongest among her kind. Yet here she was, forced into a bond she had never chosen. She clenched her fists. I will not feel, she whispered to the night. He will mean nothing to me. But the memory of his eyes lingered, not weak, not broken. Instead, they carried a quiet fire. The next morning, the council sent them away together. Their journey would take them across wild lands. So that bond could be tested, they gave no guards, no servants, only the two of them, alone against the world. Ethan walked beside her in silence at first, his steps steady, his breathing calm. He carried only a small pack, nothing else. Liara marched with her spear, tall and proud. She did not speak, but she kept watching him from the corner of her eye. When the path grew rough, she expected him to stumble. He did not. When the winds grew harsh, she thought he would complain. He did not. Instead, he moved with quiet strength, as if he had walked through storms before. Finally, she asked, Do you fear me? He turned his head, his voice even, No, I do not. The answer unsettled her. Every creature feared her. Every enemy had bowed before her blade. But this human, bound to her by force, spoke without trembling. You should, she said, her tone sharp. I am your captor as much as I am your mate. Then break me if you must, he replied, but I will not bow. Liara felt her chest tighten. It was not anger, not pride, it was something else, something she could not name. She walked faster, trying to leave it behind, but his steps matched hers, steady, unyielding. That night, when they set camp near the cliffs, Liara sat with her spear across her knees. Watching the flames rise, Ethan sat across from her, the firelight painting shadows on his face. He did not speak much, but his silence was not weakness. It was strength held in restraint. She found herself studying him again, his scars, his eyes, the way his hand rested calmly on the earth. For the first time, she wondered if the council's command carried a meaning she did not yet see. The night grew colder, the fire dimmed. Liara turned her gaze to the stars once more. But her thoughts did not stay with the stars. They stayed with Ethan, the human who refused to bow. And for the first time, a whisper entered her heart. A whisper she did not want, a whisper that said, perhaps this punishment was not punishment at all, perhaps it was the beginning of something far more dangerous. The morning sun rose over the alien cliffs, painting the sky in shades of crimson and silver. Liara moved quickly, her steps sharp, her eyes scanning the horizon. She was a warrior, and she would not let her guard fall, not even when forced to travel with a human. Ethan followed closely behind, his pace steady, his silence heavy but strong. Liara did not like silence. Silence made her thoughts too loud. It made her remember the shame of the council's order. It made her recall Ethan's defiant eyes. She wanted him to be weak. She wanted him to beg. She wanted proof that the council had punished her with something beneath her pride. Yet every moment that passed, Ethan denied her that satisfaction. When they reached a narrow path carved between high stones, Liara stopped. She turned sharply, her voice sharp as her blade. "Why do you not fear me?" she demanded. Ethan looked at her, calm as ever. "Because fear will not help me survive," he said. His words cut through her more deeply than she expected. "Do you think you can survive me?" she asked with a cold smile. "If you wish to kill me, then kill me," he answered, "but I will not crawl." Her eyes narrowed. She stepped closer, her tall frame casting a shadow over him. The spear in her hand gleamed in the morning light. She pressed the tip close to his chest, close enough that one step forward would pierce him. Yet Ethan did not move back. His breathing did not break. His gaze held hers, unwavering. Liara felt something stir inside her chest. It was not the thrill of victory, nor the heat of anger. It was something strange, something dangerous. For the first time in years, her heart skipped. She pulled the spear away quickly and turned, hiding the storm within her. They walked on in silence, but the silence was different now, charged with something unspoken. By midday, they reached a broken forest, tall, twisted trees bending under heavy winds. Shadows danced between the roots. Liara moved with her weapon ready. She had fought creatures in places like this before. She knew danger lived in every dark corner. When a low growl echoed through the trees, she raised her spear. A beast emerged, its skin covered in black scales, its mouth filled with sharp teeth, its eyes glowed red. It was a hunter of the forest, twice the size of Ethan. Liara prepared to strike. But before she moved, Ethan grabbed a broken branch. His hands tightened, and without hesitation, he faced the beast beside her. "You will die if you fight that," she told him coldly. "Then I will die fighting," he said. The beast lunged. Liara moved fast, her spear striking the creature's side. Ethan swung the branch, hitting the beast's face. His strike did not kill it, but it slowed the monster long enough for Liara to drive her weapon deep into its chest. With a final roar, the beast collapsed, the ground shaking beneath them. Liara pulled her spear free, her breath steady. She turned to Ethan, expecting fear in his eyes. Instead, she found something else. His face was pale, his arms shaking slightly from the weight of the blow, but his eyes burned with fire. "You are a fool," she said. "That thing would have torn you apart." "Better a fool who stands than a coward who runs," he answered. Her lips parted, but no words came. She hated the feeling inside her chest. It was not pity, it was not scorn, it was respect, and respect for a human was something she had sworn never to feel. They built camp near the ruins of the forest that night. The air was heavy with the scent of blood and smoke. Ethan sat near the fire, his hand wrapped with cloth where the beast had scratched him. Liara watched him from across the flames. "Why did you fight?" she asked at last, her voice low. "Because if I do nothing, I am already dead," he replied. The firelight flickered in his eyes. Liara felt the strange pull again. She wanted to turn away, to push it down, But instead, she found herself speaking words she never thought she would. "You are not what I expected," she admitted. Ethan gave a small smile, tired but proud. "Neither are you." Silence stretched between them. But this silence was not heavy, it was alive. It was the silence of two warriors who had stood side by side in battle. That night, as Liara lay beneath the alien stars, she tried to tell herself this bond was still nothing. That Ethan was still a burden, still her punishment. But her heart betrayed her, for every time she closed her eyes, she saw his fire. And for the first time in her life, she feared not the enemy, not the council, not the blade. She feared the flame awakening inside her. The journey carried them far from the cliffs and forests into the wastelands. The land stretched wide and endless, filled with broken stone and dry winds. The ground was cracked. The air carried the taste of dust. Liara walked ahead with her spear in hand. Ethan followed close, neither speaking for a long while. Yet the silence between them was no longer empty. It carried the weight of battle shared, of unspoken questions. Liara told herself she did not care. She was a warrior. Her life was duty. But when she glanced back, she always found Ethan walking strong, his steps steady, never once asking her to slow. It unsettled her, for she had expected weakness. Instead, she found endurance. At dusk, they reached the edge of a ruined city. Old towers half buried in sand, stone arches broken, streets filled with shadows. Liara raised her hand, motioning Ethan to stay quiet. "This place is not safe," she whispered. Ethan nodded, his eyes scanning the ruins. He carried no spear, no blade, but his alertness matched hers. They moved through the cracked streets, their footsteps echoing against stone. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, marks of an ancient race long gone. Liara felt the tension in her chest grow. This place had seen blood. She could feel it in the air. As night fell, the ruins came alive with whispers. From the shadows emerged creatures, thin, pale, their eyes black as night. They moved like smoke, sliding across the ground with eerie speed. Liara spun her spear in her hands, ready. The creatures hissed, circling them. Liara's voice was sharp. "Stay behind me." But Ethan stepped forward, picking up a shard of broken stone. His face calm, his eyes steady. Liara's chest tightened with anger. "Do not be foolish," she snapped. "I will not hide while you bleed," he said. The first creature lunged. Liara struck, her spear slicing through the air. One fell, but two more leapt from the dark. Ethan swung the stone with fierce strength, hitting one across the jaw. It screamed, twisting back into the shadows. The fight dragged long into the night. Liara fought with the precision of a warrior. Every strike perfect. Ethan fought with raw will, every move fueled by stubborn fire. When at last the final creature fell, the ruins were silent again. Only their heavy breaths filled the night air. Liara lowered her spear slowly, her body aching but steady. She turned to Ethan, expecting him to collapse. But though his hand shook, he stood firm, blood running from a cut on his arm. His eyes locked on hers, and for the first time, Liara felt herself struggle to look away. "You risked your life again," she said sharply, trying to mask the warmth rising in her chest. "And you risked yours for me," he answered. The words struck deeper than any blade. She turned quickly, hiding her face in the shadows. "Do not mistake my actions," she said. "You are my duty, nothing more." But in her heart, she knew those words were lies. They camped in the ruins that night, a small fire crackling between broken stones. Liara cleaned her spear in silence. Ethan sat across from her, wrapping his wounds with strips of cloth torn from his shirt. The firelight danced across his face, casting shadows that made his eyes seem brighter. "You fight like someone who has lost much," she said quietly without looking at him. Ethan's voice was low, steady. "On Earth, I lost my family when the wars began. I learned then that fear does nothing. Only standing matters." Liara felt her chest ache. She had lost comrades in battle, but she had never spoken of it, never shared her scars. Yet this human spoke openly. His pain carried not as weakness, but as strength. She wanted to ask more, to know more, but she stopped herself. She was not supposed to care. She was not supposed to feel, and yet her eyes lingered on him too long. Her heart beat too fast when his gaze met hers across the fire. When the flames dimmed and the night grew colder, Liara lay awake, staring at the broken sky above. She told herself she should only think of duty, of survival. But every thought returned to Ethan, to his voice, his fire, the way he stood beside her against death itself. She turned away, closing her eyes, whispering into the darkness. This bond is not real. I will not let it be real. But even as she whispered, her heart betrayed her. For deep inside, she knew the truth. This was no longer just duty. This was something far more dangerous, something that could burn away everything she had ever known. The wind howled through the ruined city as dawn broke, carrying the smell of dust and ashes. Liara rose first, her body tense, her spear always near. Ethan followed soon after, his arms still bandaged from the night before. He moved slower than usual, but his eyes held the same quiet fire. They left the ruins and entered a stretch of jagged hills. Shadows clung to the stone, and the path wound narrow between sharp ridges. Liara kept her senses sharp. This land was known for ambushes. She had traveled here once before, and the memory of what lurked made her grip the spear tighter. By midday, a storm rolled across the sky, black clouds swirling with violet flashes of alien lightning. The air crackled, the ground trembled. Liara knew this storm was not natural. It was alive, filled with energy that could kill. "Stay close," she told Ethan, her voice hard. The wind screamed, tearing at their cloaks. Stones rolled down the cliffs. The storm split the sky with a roar. Ethan stumbled as a wave of energy struck the ground near him. The earth cracked, throwing him back. Liara leapt forward, grabbing him before he fell into the chasm below. Her arm wrapped around him, pulling him close against her armor. For a moment, the storm seemed to vanish. The only sound was his breath against her chest, his heart beating fast beneath her hand. She pulled him up to safer ground, her grip firm. His eyes met hers, wide but steady, and something happened in that instant. Something she had never felt before. A spark shot through her, not from the storm, but from his touch. Her skin burned where his hand brushed her arm. Her heart raced in a way no battle ever had. She pushed him away quickly, turning her face. "Do not fall again," she said sharply, her voice colder than she intended. But Ethan did not argue. He only nodded, his gaze lingering on her for longer than before. The storm raged for hours, forcing them to take shelter in a cave carved into the cliffside. The walls glowed faintly with crystal veins, casting soft light over their faces. Liara sat against the stone, silent. Ethan leaned across from her, exhaustion clear in his body. The cave felt too small, the air too close. She could still feel the warmth of his touch on her skin, and it unsettled her more than the storm outside. "You saved me," Ethan said quietly, breaking the silence. "I saved myself," she replied quickly. "If you fall, you weaken my path." But her words sounded hollow, even to her own ears. Ethan gave a small smile, tired but calm. "You could have let me fall. You didn't." She had no answer. Her eyes met his again, and in that silence, the storm outside was forgotten. The world shrank until only the cave remained, only the fire in his gaze. For a long moment, she felt exposed, not as a warrior, but as a woman. Her walls trembled. Her heart whispered truths she refused to hear. When the storm finally passed, they stepped outside. The air smelled fresh, the sky clearer than before. But the silence between them had changed. It was not the silence of strangers. It was charged, alive, filled with the memory of touch. That evening they camped beneath the open sky. The stars burned bright. Ethan sat close to the fire, his hands warming in the glow. Liara sat across, her eyes on him, though she tried to hide it. "Your people," Ethan said softly, "they think me weak, but weakness is not in standing alone. It is in never standing at all." His words struck her. She thought of her own people, proud, unbending, blind to anything but strength. And yet here was a human, beaten by storms and scars, still rising, still burning. For the first time, Liara wondered if strength was not in the blade, but in the heart. When their eyes met across the flames, the world felt fragile. Something inside her walls cracked further. The fire of his touch still burned, echoing through her veins. She turned away, whispering to herself, "I cannot feel this, I must not." But her heart answered with every beat, louder and louder. This was not weakness. This was something she had no weapon against. As sleep took her that night, she realized the truth she feared most. The council had forced her into this bond, but now it was no longer forced. Something dangerous had awakened between them, something that could change everything. The road ahead led them into the Valley of Rivers, where silver waters cut across dark stone. The air was cooler, the sound of rushing streams filling the silence between them. Liara walked ahead, her spear glinting in the sunlight. Ethan followed close, his gaze drawn not to the path, but to the endless horizon. Days had passed since the storm, yet the memory of their touch lingered like fire under Liara's skin. She tried to bury it beneath duty, but each time she looked at Ethan, the walls inside her cracked a little more. Ethan moved with quiet strength, carrying no weapon but his will. He never complained when the paths were long, never faltered when the nights grew cold. Liara found herself watching him, not as a burden, but as something else, something she could not name without fear. When they stopped at the edge of a wide river, Ethan knelt, cupping water into his hands. The sun touched his face, highlighting scars she had never noticed before. Liara stared, her chest tightening. She had fought countless battles, yet she had never studied another with such care. "You watch me too closely," Ethan said suddenly, his tone calm but curious. Liara's eyes hardened. "I watch because I must," she answered. "You are my duty." "Duty does not stare like that," he replied, his voice low. She turned away quickly, her grip tightening on the spear. "Do not think yourself more than you are," she said coldly, but her words trembled. That night, they camped near the river's edge. The stars reflected on the water, the fire between them crackling softly. Ethan sat quietly, pulling a small piece of cloth from his pack. On it were marks, lines, circles, strange shapes. "What is that?" Liara asked, curiosity slipping through her tone. "Memories," Ethan said. "I draw what I remember, my home, my family, the fields of earth." Liara leaned closer, the firelight catching the drawings, simple lines, but filled with life. A tree with wide branches, a small house, a woman's face smiling. "Your mother?" Liara asked. Ethan nodded. "She sang when the nights were long. Her voice kept me alive when everything else was gone." Liara's chest tightened. She had never known songs, never known a voice of comfort. Her people did not sing. They shouted war cries. They carried strength, not softness. Yet in that moment, she longed to hear such a voice. "Your people are strange," she whispered. "Strange does not mean weak," Ethan replied. "Sometimes it means alive." She met his eyes, and for a moment, the firelight seemed brighter. The silence that followed was not heavy. It was warm, alive with something unspoken. The next day, their path led into the mountains, snow dusting the high peaks. The climb was harsh, the air thin. Liara moved like the warrior she was, strong and swift. Ethan struggled, yet never stopped. His breaths came hard, but his steps never broke. At one point, the snow beneath his foot gave way. He slipped toward the edge. Liara reached out, her hand grabbing his wrist. Their eyes locked as she pulled him back. The heat of his skin burned into hers. For a moment, neither moved. The world around them vanished, leaving only the closeness of their touch. Liara's heart pounded. Her breath caught. She wanted to let go, yet she did not. She could not. Finally, she pulled him up fully, her voice sharper than she felt. "You are reckless. And yet you saved me again," he answered softly. Her grip lingered longer than it should have. She pulled away quickly, her chest heavy. That night in the cold mountains, they huddled near the fire, the wind howling outside their shelter. Ethan's voice broke the silence. "Your people call me weak, but tell me, Liara, Do you believe that now?" She stared at him, the fire casting shadows across his face. Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, she could not lie. She looked away, whispering, "I do not know." But inside, she did know. The walls she had built for years were breaking, her pride, her anger, her duty, all falling before the fire of his touch. She lay awake that night, her heart torn, whispering to the cold air, "This cannot be love. I will not let it be love." Yet when she closed her eyes, she saw his smile, his scars, his fire, and the truth burned deeper than any blade. The mountains gave way to wide plains, endless grass bending under the sharp winds. Liara and Ethan walked together, the silence between them heavier than before. For days she had felt the walls inside her breaking, and now they stood shattered. Each time she looked at him, she felt the fire burn stronger. Each time he spoke, she felt her pride weaken. But peace was brief. On the horizon, shadows moved, figures of her people riding beasts of iron, armored and proud. The council had found them. Liara felt her chest tighten. Duty rose like a blade pressing against her heart. She knew what they wanted. She knew what she was expected to do. The riders stopped before them. Their leader, a tall woman clad in silver armor, dismounted. Her eyes were cold as steel. "Liara," she said, "your mission is complete. You will return, and the human will be judged." Ethan stood firm at Liara's side. He did not speak, but his silence carried strength. His jaw was set, his gaze steady. Liara could feel the fire in him, even as her people looked at him with disgust. "He is not weak," Liara said before she could stop herself. Her voice cut through the air. The warriors shifted, eyes narrowing at her defiance. The leader's lips curved into a thin smile. "You forget yourself, Liara. He was given to you as punishment, not as choice. Your duty is to end this farce and return with honor." Ethan finally spoke, his voice calm but strong. "If you want me dead, then do it now, but I will not crawl to save myself." The warriors laughed, a cruel sound carried by the wind. But Liara did not laugh. Her chest burned, her hands trembled against the spear. She wanted to shout, to fight, but her mind screamed with conflict. She turned to Ethan, his eyes met hers, steady, unwavering. "I will not beg you, Liara," he said. "If you choose them, then let it be, but know this, I will never bow. Not to them, not even to you." Her heart shattered at his words. For so long she had been taught that humans were weak. Yet here he stood, ready to die rather than break. She thought of the storm, of the ruins, of the nights by the fire. She thought of the way his touch had set her heart ablaze. The leader raised her hand, signaling the warriors. "Take him," she ordered. Liara stepped forward, her spear striking the ground. The sound echoed like thunder. "No," she said, her voice sharp as steel. "You will not take him." Gasps filled the air. The warriors stared, the leader's eyes narrowing. "You defy the council," she demanded. Liara's breath came fast, but her voice did not falter. "I defy injustice," she said. "You call him punishment, but he has stood beside me in battle. He has faced death without fear. He has more honor in his heart than many who wear this armor." Ethan stood silent, but his eyes burned with something deeper, trust. The leader's voice turned cold. "If you choose him, you betray your people." Liara's chest ached. Duty and desire tore at her soul. Her entire life had been shaped by obedience, by loyalty. But for the first time, she questioned if loyalty meant blindness. She looked at Ethan, and her heart spoke the truth her lips had long denied. "I choose him," she said. The warriors erupted in anger, their voices rising like a storm. The leader raised her hand for silence. Her eyes burned with fury. "Then you are no longer of us," she declared. "You are cast out." Liara's heart pounded. Her people turned from her, their faces hard. Yet when she looked at Ethan, she saw no fear, only fire. And for the first time in her life, she felt free. That night, they camped far from the warriors, alone beneath the stars. Liara sat with her spear beside her. But her hands trembled. She had lost everything. Her people, her honor, her home. Yet when Ethan sat beside her, quiet and steady, she felt something stronger than all she had lost. "You gave up everything for me," Ethan said softly. "No," she whispered, her voice low but firm. I gave up everything for truth." The silence between them was no longer filled with walls. It was filled with fire, with a bond no council could command, no warrior could break. Liara turned her gaze to the stars, her voice steady now. "The council called you punishment, but you were never punishment, you were freedom." Ethan's hand brushed hers, their fingers touching. The warmth spread like fire through her veins. She did not pull away, not this time. For the first time in her life, Liara did not feel like a warrior bound by chains. She felt like a woman who had chosen, and in that choice, she found a strength greater than any blade. The plains stretched far behind them, but Liara did not look back. Her people had cast her out, stripped her of honor, stripped her of name, yet her steps did not falter. For the first time in her life, she walked not for duty, but for choice. Beside her walked Ethan, his silence strong, his eyes steady. They traveled through wild lands, hunted by storms and shadows. But Liara no longer felt the weight of punishment. She felt the fire of freedom, and with every day, that fire grew. But freedom came at a cost. Word of her betrayal spread quickly. Bands of warriors began to hunt them, sworn to drag her back in chains or to end her life. Liara knew this was coming. She had defied the council, and they would never forgive. One evening, as the sun burned low over the horizon, they came, a full war band, armored and armed. Their leader carried the banner of judgment. His voice thundered across the field. "Liara, fallen warrior, you will return to face justice, and the human will die." Ethan stepped forward, his shoulders squared. His voice rang steady. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." Liara's chest burned at his words. He stood unarmed before a war band, knowing death waited. And yet he did not tremble. She had fought beside champions, but never had she seen such courage. She raised her spear, her voice carrying across the field. "No, they will go through me." The battle began with a roar. Warriors charged, blades flashing in the dying light. Liara fought like fire itself. Every strike fueled not by duty, but by love. Her spear danced. Her body moved with deadly grace. But there were too many. The tide pushed against them. Ethan fought beside her with only broken stone and burning will. He was struck, blood running down his arm. Yet still he rose, still he stood. His defiance lit the battlefield like a second sun. At one moment, when an enemy blade aimed for Ethan's heart, Liara threw herself forward, taking the strike across her armor. Pain cut deep, but she did not fall. Instead, she turned the spear and struck the enemy down. The warriors faltered, their eyes widening. They saw not weakness, but power, not punishment, but bond. For the first time, fear entered their hearts. The leader roared, "You shame us, Liara. You throw away honor for a human." Liara stood tall, blood on her armor, fire in her eyes. "No," she said, her voice shaking the air. "I have found a greater honor than you will ever know. Honor is not blind loyalty. Honor is love. Honor is choosing truth even when the world calls it weakness." Her words cut through them sharper than her spear. One by one, the warriors hesitated, their blades lowered. Their leader stood alone in his rage. He charged, his weapon raised high, but Liara met him head-on. Her spear clashed against his blade. Sparks filled the air. With one final strike, she brought him to the ground. His banner fell, torn and broken. The battlefield grew silent. The warriors did not move. They looked at her, and for the first time, they saw strength in a bond they had called shame. Slowly, one by one, they turned and left, their silence heavier than war cries. Liara stood breathless, her body aching. Ethan stumbled toward her, his hand pressed to his wound. She caught him before he could fall, holding him close. "You are bleeding," she whispered, fear cracking her voice. "And still alive," he said with a faint smile. Her heart broke and healed in the same breath. She pressed her forehead against his, her voice trembling. I was forced to take a human mate, but I never knew that mate would burn away my chains. Ethan's hand rose, brushing her cheek. His touch was fire, soft yet consuming, and I never knew an alien could teach me what it means to live, he whispered. The stars burned above them as night fell, but neither looked at the sky, for their world now lived in each other's eyes. Liara had been punished with a bond, but she had chosen love. Ethan had been given as a mate, but he had become destiny. Together they stood on the edge of exile, free, broken, alive, and in the fire of his touch, she found not weakness, but strength greater than any war. The journey was not over. Dangers still lurked in shadows, but they would face it together, not as forced mates, but as chosen hearts. And in that choice, they burned brighter than stars.